Grayson, you're on.
Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you. I really appreciate you guys taking your Saturday to spend with me to go over this material. I'm very passionate about credit because I understand the power of credit. I was hoping that you'd be able to view my PowerPoint, but what I will do is make this available to the pastor so you guys can review these slides later. But I'm going to encourage you to take very good notes. We're going to cover a lot of material very quickly, but I'm going to be available to you guys so we can keep going over this material and reinforcing it until you are very adept at it and you're very comfortable with the material. Whenever you hear the president speak, and now you'll start to see Congress more and more panicky about personal economies. The president is always talking about giving consumers access to the credit markets. So I want you to understand what it is that Congress is very fervent about, why the president is in sheer panic mode, and what is going on with the state of personal finance in this country. Right now, we have just gone through what has been called the Great Recession. Most people feel that maybe we're starting to come out of the Great Recession, but unfortunately, most experts agree that we are headed to a time that is going to be much more, we'll say, dangerous for the economy. We're headed for a time that will make the Great Recession seem like a party. Uh, every top economic advisor in the country is afraid that we're headed toward a total economic collapse. And what is prompting this is the lack of savings in the country, the lack of access to capital for consumers. Unfortunately, our structure is based on selling two products in this country: homes and cars. If we are selling a lot of homes and cars, the economy thrives, everybody makes money. But currently, home sales are down, automobile sales are down, primarily because both things are tied to access to capital, which means credit. Both of those things are tied to credit. Also, small business growth is floundering because, again, small business owners don't have access to capital. They can't get their hands on cash money. And that is what has the government in such sheer panic. If they cannot reverse this trend quickly, then the entire economy will shut down. The entire economy. Let me review some quick statistics for you so that you understand where the government is coming from at this point. Currently in this country, there are over 1 million school children attending school in the United States who are homeless. Over 1 million children currently enrolled in U.S. schools are homeless. 50% of all Americans cannot put their hands on $1,000 in 30 days for a financial emergency. Over half of the country could not put their hands on $1,000 for an emergency if they had 30 days to do it. 1 in 6 Americans of working age are currently unemployed. There are so many people in Detroit who are food insecure. That means they don't know where their next meal is coming from, that the UN is considering stepping in to offer aid to the city of Detroit. The UN is planning to step in. 52% of homeowners cannot currently afford their home. 52% of homeowners cannot afford their home. About 12 million Americans are currently using payday loans. Payday loans are the most predatory lending product on the planet. The government is actively trying to put payday lenders out of business in this country. In fact, the situation is so bad that if you take a look on the internet, the Pentagon is currently studying the problem of payday lenders to create a strategy to put them out of business. The Pentagon. And finally, over the past 10 years, the middle class has lost 1/3 of all of its assets. That's over $20 trillion the middle class has lost. So when you start to look at this type of picture, how do you sum it up? Let's sum it up with one statistic. If you go online and you take a look at the countries with the most children living in poverty, this is all the nations of the world. I want you guys to, after this workshop, to take a look at this. You will see on this list, #1 in the world, the country with the most children currently living in poverty is Mexico. There is no surprise there. Mexico is #1 in the world for child poverty. What is a surprise, though, is who is #2. #2 is the United States. The United States has the second highest number of children living in poverty of any nation in the world. And that includes Africa, India, China. That includes third world countries. We are still #2. So some of you sitting in the audience might not feel the state of emergency, but we are at emergency levels. People all around you. If you're sitting in a room with 10 people, 5 of those people are currently in a financial hardship. 5 of those people are currently in a financial hardship. Unfortunately, for the government, if you listen to President Obama, he's always talking about all the programs he's initiated, all the major reforms he's made to help give you access to the credit markets and get out of debt. He keeps talking about all these programs, but I know most of you are probably saying, what programs? In fact, Congress is getting desperate because they have passed so many programs to help you eliminate debt and get perfect credit, and you guys are not using the programs, so they don't know what to do next. They really are at a loss for what to do, which is why I am so fortunate to have your pastor be so passionate and love you guys so much that he brought us in to go over this material with you. So today we're going to learn about those programs so that we can get out of debt and have perfect credit. Right now, your visions and the government's visions are uniquely aligned. You are trying to get out of debt and have perfect credit, and the government is trying to help you do that. So fortunately for us, it puts us in a very good position. Historically, in the 40s, if you're not a student of history, this might be a little new to you, but I want you to try to remember back or go and research this. Before the 40s, if people were unemployed, they were broke, they needed money, they were hungry, they would go to the church. Everybody went to the church. Everybody went to the church. Anytime there was a financial hardship, they went to the church. The first person they would call was the pastor. So back in those days, it gave the church a lot of power in the community, and it gave them a tremendous opportunity to witness and grow the kingdom. Now, President Roosevelt came up with what he considered to be a brilliant idea. He wanted to take your loyalty away from the church and move it to the state. He said he didn't want people to be loyal to the church and God. He wanted people to be loyal to the state, to the government. So he created what he called the New Deal. The New Deal. So the New Deal was a whole system of government programs. Welfare was included in that, so that when you had a financial problem or hardship, you went to your government. You did not go to the church. So now we find ourselves at a point in history where people are getting discouraged with the government. So once again, people are going to return to the kingdom looking for answers. financial answers, real-time answers. And if you are in a position, if you arm yourself with this technology, you will be in a position to help these people at an unprecedented level and grow the kingdom at a level never before seen before. This is a tremendous opportunity to win souls for the kingdom and introduce the world to our Lord and Savior. So even though these are very problematic times for the country, I hold out a tremendous amount of hope because it's going to afford us a lot of opportunity to witness and bring people back to the kingdom. So it's important for us. Ephesians 5:11 talks about knowing your enemies. I want you guys to have this scripture. Ephesians 5:11. It says, "And have no fellowship with unfruitful works of darkness, but rather reprove them." Ephesians 5:11. The reason that is important for us is because we have to first know what those unfruitful works of darkness are so that we will have no fellowship with them and we can reprove them. That is why the Word always talks to us about signs and being aware of what is going on. So I want today, first before we start talking about solutions, let's talk about the problem. So we want to know who our enemies are. So let's start off by talking about accessing capital. Every single way that you access capital currently in this country, every single way that you access capital, whether you are a professional, you need licensing, whether you're trying to borrow money, all higher education loans and training, if you want a government contract, if you want startup capital, credit cards, it really doesn't matter what form the capital takes. If you want a promotion on your job, if you want to get a job in the first place, if you want to join the military, all of those things are tied to one thing. There's only one way to access capital in this country or in this world if you are among the 99% of us who are not the top 1% richest people in the country. The top 1% richest people, we're going to throw them out of the equation. If you're part of the bottom 99%, there is only one solitary way for you to access capital, and that is through credit. All the things that you need to get any form of money in this country right now are tied to credit. That is by design. The reason that is because this country and the rest of the world is shifting to a plastic economy. Currently, only 7% of all transactions in this country involve money. And most of them are small amounts of money. Only 7%. Only 7%. So we are closer to a plastic economy than you think. That is why credit has become so essential. In the year 2000, this country switched from the old credit system to the new FICO credit scoring system. The FICO credit scoring system is radically different than the old credit system. In the old credit system, if you didn't need stuff, you didn't need credit. In the new credit system, it controls 80% of all financial decisions in your life. You cannot live without good credit. In fact, a good name or good credit is to be valued more than gold and silver in this current environment. The problem is, in 2000, when we made the shift to the new FICO credit scoring system, no one officially announced it, no one officially gave you full disclosure. So what I mean by that, even though the General Accountability Office said that lack of information about the new credit system was the single greatest threat to the economy, no one took the time to teach you the new FICO credit scoring system. So you mistakenly believe it is business as usual. So you're doing the same things now that you did in the old credit system. If you have a debt problem or a credit problem, you're using the same strategies that you did in the old credit system. But in the new credit system, everything is radically different, and that is what we're going to talk about today. So it's important, again, before we start talking about solutions, to understand the totality of this problem. So I want you to understand that credit is going to affect 6 major industries, if you can write this down: housing, banking, employment, insurance, and retail sales. Those are the 6 key industries that are impacted the most by credit. So housing, we know that you've always needed good credit to buy a house, but now you need good credit to live in the ghetto. In the future, they're going to start pushing people with bad credit into weekly rental hotels. So that way you are easily monitored. All these hotels have high levels of surveillance, which the government can tap into. They want people who they deem the underclass to be easily monitored and controlled. If you're living at a weekly rental hotel and you feel a hardship, you will very quickly be living in the streets. That puts you one step from the streets, where you're one step from prison. So it is all a very calculated approach. So weekly rental hotels will never do a credit check. So that is always one place where you will be able to live in the future. Number 2, banking. You've always needed good credit to borrow money from a bank, but now you need good credit to give a bank money. Think about that. You could have $10,000 cash. You try to open up a bank account. If you have bad credit, they will not take your money. Again, the industry understands this. As long as they can keep your money in your pocket, it will find its way outside of your pocket. As long as you don't have a bank account, they understand that you will never be truly middle class. That's why you see the check cashing stores popping up everywhere. Even Walmart is starting their own check cashing chain within their stores. Check cashing is very profitable. They're going to charge you to get access to your own money. That is a brilliant strategy for taking advantage of. Number 3, employment. Oh my goodness. You need, right now, the Census Bureau just did a study, 66% of all employers said that your credit was the most important factor to getting a job or a promotion. A job or a promotion. Let me tell you where the industry is going. Right now in New York, if you work for the Bureau of Prisons, the Department of Justice, who I just did a course for, if you work for the firefighters or the police department, they have instituted a program called Random Employer Credit Checks. Most government and private sector employers over the next couple years will convert to Random Employer Credit Checks. What that means, just like a random drug screen, your employer can randomly choose you and they will check your credit. If you are below a 680, you will be placed on indefinite leave or terminated. That is what's currently happening here in this state and in states all across the country. It's called a random employer credit check. Let me explain the power of this process for the employer. Now, let's say you've been working for me for 10 or 15 years, you're due for a raise or promotion. If you apply for a raise or promotion and you have bad credit, now you take the chance on getting terminated. That is the power. So now I can have a whole workforce who I can keep and freeze your wages. That is how the middle class has been started to be shut down, freezing wages. So the random employer credit check is a powerful tool for freezing wages. Call a military recruiter. The first thing he's going to ask you is, how is your credit? You can't even die for this country if you have bad credit. That's how serious they are about cutting off all your access to capital. A lot of you have great jobs. You've been there 10 or 20 years. Some of you will start to lose those great jobs right before retirement because your credit is bad. If I'm an employer and I'm trying to save money, I'm going to start doing the random employer credit checks on my top earners. I'm going to start shutting down my top earners with random employer credit checks. Number 4, insurance industry. You already know, or you should know at this point, that almost every form of insurance you have, the price you pay is based on your credit. In fact, let me share one thing with you. I want you guys to take a look at Progressive Insurance website. On Progressive Insurance's website, they clearly tell you what their insurance scores are. It says, an insurance score is a score calculated from information on your credit report. Credit information is very predictive of future accidents or insurance claims, which is why Progressive and most insurers use this information to help develop more accurate rates. Do you really believe that? Now that you have bad credit, you will have more car accidents. They're saying because you have bad credit, you can't drive. That's scary. Now all of a sudden, because I got bad credit, I'm all over the road. But again, they're selling you a process. This process should be called financial genocide. They're asking you to sign up for financial genocide. All insurances. Let me share something with you, something top secret. One of the reasons President Obama is risking his career on Obamacare is because of health scores. Just like insurance scores, health scores will base the rates you pay for health insurance on your credit. So that means if you have bad credit in this country, you will be uninsurable in the near future. So the president is scared to death that because 80% of you have bad credit, that you will not have any insurance. When you get sick, they will start killing you off. This is where this country is going. I want you to check this out because this is probably hard for you to believe. Right now, most hospitals check your credit whether you have insurance or not. Why is that? Because depending on the size of the deductible, they want to figure what procedures to offer you and which ones not to offer you. Now, I had an incident with one of our clients who was very belligerent to my staff. She was almost, I would almost venture to say she was evil. Her husband was very big, very intimidating looking guy, looked like, you know, a boxer or a bouncer or something. And they used to come in my office and terrorize my staff. Now, if you ever are in New York and you stop by my office, you'll see my office is super quiet. We don't have people complaining or coming and protesting, all that. All of our clients are very happy with our service. So it's very unusual to have a client be very aggressive with my staff. They don't know how to handle it, frankly. So it came to the point, one day these guys came in cutting up, to the point where I told the staff, call the police and have them escorted out of it. But I thought about it, I said, no, on second thought, just bring them to my office. So when they came to my office, these guys were snarling at me, they were going off cussing and screaming. And so I was like, I don't understand. You've only been in my program 2 months. You've had a lot of increase. You're probably a month or two away from having perfect credit. Why are you carrying on? And she was like, well, you know, we were referred by a friend. You got a friend done in 30 days. You know, I don't think you're working as hard on my file. And so she was just going off. And at one point, the young lady stopped screaming at me and she started crying intensely. And she was crying, and through her tears, she said, you know, I can't take it anymore. If you guys don't fix my credit, I could die. You know I have terminal cancer. I was like, what? I said, I don't understand. She said, the hospital will not give me the procedure I need to save my life because my credit is bad. So at that point, it all made sense to me. She's not mad at us. She is frustrated by the chance that she might die if I don't fix her credit soon enough. She is scared, and it made sense. So at that point, I understood how to handle the client. I said, look, I'm going to watch your credit personally. Come see me in 45 days if you are not done. Because I'm going to take personal control over your credit restoration. Now, realistically, I didn't do that because I felt like the program was working for her. But I wanted to give them a certain level of confidence in our process. So I didn't think anything else about it. I didn't hear anything back from them. But like 2 or 3 months later, I heard a lot of commotion in our office. Now, we had a long office, and again, my office is very quiet, and we have a lot of work to do, so my staff know I don't like a lot of laughing and joking. But there was a lot of laughter and commotion, and so I ignored it for a while, but the laughter started getting louder and louder. So I jumped up out of my chair, and I looked to the end. We have a long hallway. I saw this couple playing with the staff, laughing and joking, and they were walking toward me, waving and laughing. And when they got close enough, I actually realized it was that same couple. The difference was, you should have saw this woman. You know, the first time I saw her in my office, she looked just like that girl on The Exorcist. In fact, I was waiting for her head to start spinning any minute. But if you had seen her 45 days later, after her score hit 700, you wouldn't have recognized her. Her makeup was perfect. You know, she was just beautiful. She was glowing, smiling. Her husband was smiling. It changed their life. And that is why I am so committed to giving this information. This credit is no longer just about credit. It is now a life or death situation. Do you understand the fastest growing cause of death right now in the country is suicide? By the numbers, let's see, I think I got the numbers right here. Okay, here it is. For every rise of 1% in unemployment is accompanied by an increase of 1% in suicide rate. So people are getting desperate. They don't know what to do. So we want to introduce people to a system called rapid restructure. Rapid restructure has 3 components. The first component is called debt filtration. The second component is called strategic credit restoration and development. And the third component is called a FICO score enhancement algorithm. So let's talk about these. First, let's talk about strategic credit restoration. I'm sorry, we're going to talk about debt filtration. Now, debt filtration. I want you to leave here and remember one thing if you don't remember anything else. Stop paying bad debt and start filtering bad debt. That's what I want you to tell people about this workshop. If you didn't learn nothing else, this is what you learned. Stop paying your bad debt. Stop paying your bad debt. Stop paying your bad debt. Filter your bad debt. If anything is left after that, you pay that. But you filter your bad debt. Now, so that we're on the same page, because we are all striving to be good stewards, because we know if we're a good steward over small things, God will give us big things, right? So we always want to be a good steward. So anything I teach you has to be in line with that policy. So let me give you the foundation for debt filtration. Debt filtration is actually pulled from the Bible. Let me give you the government standard for debt filtration. The first standard is Luke 7:41 and 42. Luke 7:41 and 42. It says, a certain creditor had 2 debtors. One owed 500 denarii, the other owed 50. When they could not pay, he canceled the debts for both of them. When he could not pay, he canceled the debts for both of them. Look at the standard for debt filtration. What do you have to do to qualify for debt filtration? The qualification is he could not pay. When they could not pay, they could not pay. That is the standard. That is the qualification. They could not pay. The creditor didn't say, well, we're going to send this to collections, or we're going to take you to court, or, pay us, give us a post-dated check, and we're going to put you on a payment plan. He said he canceled, the word says, he canceled the debt for both of them. A lot of times when I teach this message in the church, and for a while I taught the message and I kind of backed away because people misunderstood the message. People thought because I taught debt filtration that maybe I'm teaching Christians not to pay their bills. That is far from the truth. Debt filtration is a temporary system of programs that currently allows you to get out of debt without paying. It is not a long-term way of life. I value my credit more than anything else, so I pay my bills, and I encourage you to do the same. But if you're in a position where you cannot pay, there is a provision set up for you. That is what's called being a good steward. When you use the tools that are available to you. The second passage is Deuteronomy 15:2. At the end of every 7 years, you shall grant a remission of debts. This is the manner of remission. Every creditor shall release what he has loaned to his neighbor. He shall not exact it of his neighbor and his brother, because the Lord's remission has been proclaimed. So I'm here to tell you that we're in a position to see and feel the Lord's remission. That is why bad credit only, people wonder why bad credit only stays on your credit report for 7 years. Because our forefathers were Christians. And these are the two standards set forth by our government. So let's talk a little bit more about debt filtration. Again, debt filtration is a system of programs and laws. There's approximately 48 of them currently. Every year we gain and lose debt filters. Unfortunately, most of these filters came through President Obama's administration. I'm very scared that when he leaves, the filters, most of them will go with him. The primary reason is no one's using the filters. So they believe that it is a failed experiment of Obama's. So I'm sure the next administration will probably walk away from debt filtration. Debt filtration is very expensive to the government, and they're paying the expense, but you're not using it. Debt filtration is like debt insurance. The reason that you pay taxes in this country is not to keep the country running. Your income tax does not go to the running of the government. It goes to the Federal Reserve System, which is a system of debt. So you are paying debt insurance. It's just that you're not utilizing the benefits. It's just like this. If you left this meeting, you were very excited about the information, and you ran into somebody's car on your way out. You pay your insurance, but if you it's like calling your insurance company and say, hey, no, I got this one. Don't pay the repairs on the car. Let me pay it. I would rather take the money in my 401k or take my kids' college fund or get a second job so I can pay for the repairs. You do that every day. That's what you good stewards do every day. But now we are seeking to change that. We want you to use the programs that are available to you. So debt filtration, let me give you an example of how it works. I'm going to use the easiest debt filter that's out there. This filter is called statute of limitations. You guys can go online and look up statute of limitations. It is a state level filter. So every state cancels your debt after a certain period of time. So what that means is it is illegal to collect the debt after that time period. The problem is because you don't know about debt filtration, no one has taught you. I'm not saying it's your fault. No one's taught you debt filtration. Because you have not been taught debt filtration, creditors are taking advantage of that fact. If you look up something else for me on the internet, it's called zombie debt. The reason it's called zombie debt is because this debt is dead and canceled, but creditors are still getting paid on it. And in fact, it's one of the most lucrative sectors of debt purchase. They buy this debt for less than pennies on the dollar. It actually sells for fractions of a cent, but they end up recouping 80% of that money from you. They end up recouping 80% of it. Again, because no one has taught you debt filtration. So what happens, depending on the state, so let's say you're in North Carolina. In North Carolina, the statute of limitation is 3 years. So after 3 years, no one can legally collect that debt from you. Let me correct that, after 3 years of non-payment. So something happens, you cannot pay. You haven't made a single payment for 3 years, that debt is legally canceled by the state. All you have to do is file one form and the debt disappears. You don't have to file bankruptcy. You don't need to go to consumer credit counseling. You don't need debt consolidation. All you need to do is file one document and the debt is canceled. It is canceled. You don't have to pay a partial payment. You don't have to pay no money. The debt is canceled for $0. That is a perfect filter. You file this one document, it cancels the debt and removes it from your credit. So you don't even need credit repair. Got it? That is the power of debt filtration. There's 48 different types of filters. Let me give you one more filter. Offer and compromise. If every debt has a filter, every debt has a filter. So if you currently are having financial hardships, if you can't save, listen, this is how you know if you have a financial hardship. If you cannot pay, every time you get paid, 10% of your gross income should go to your tithes, 20% should go to you. You should be able to set aside some money for your offerings, and the rest you pay your bills. Got it? So you pay God first, you pay yourself second, then you pay the church. God, self, church, then whatever's left. And this is from the gross, not 10% of your net income, your gross income. 20% should be put aside and never touched. If you cannot do this easily, then you have a debt problem. So you should be using debt filtration to reduce your aggregate debt, cut your payments, and increase your savings. Part of the problem for most Americans, bad credit is eating up 30% of your income. So you're paying bad credit tax, you're paying Uncle Sam's tax, and then you got nothing left to live off of and pay your bills. But the government has given you a solution. They've given you filters. So again, the offer and compromise filter works for all tax debt in excess of 10 grand. So if you owe more than 10 grand in tax liabilities, you got a tax lien, you should not be paying it. You should be filtering it. Most people get a letter from the government, it's a writ that's usually, it says intent to levy, and then you go into panic mode. You see on there, there's a number to call. As soon as you call that number, they're going to start beating you up and making you pay that tax liability. That is a mistake. The first thing you should do is call them up and say, please send me an OIC package. But again, no one has taught you debt filtration, so you are asking the wrong questions and getting the wrong results. I'm going to go over one final debt filter. It's a phase 1 filter that we've had a lot of success with over the last couple of weeks. Every creditor in the country is under mandate from the government to offer you some type of hardship program. Every credit card company, every car loan, everybody that offers car loan. Recently, one of our clients who had cancer, they gave him a $450 reduction on his car payment. He had another client, $150 a month reduction. All you have to do is call and ask to be included in their hardship program. So if you can't do the first 3 things that we talked about, pay God, pay yourself, and pay the church, then you should hardship every single account that you have. Don't just pick 1 or 2 of the worst or the highest one. Hardship them all. Because again, your tax dollars have paid for these debt filters. So again, those are 3 examples, and as time progresses and we do this more often, we'll talk about more and more filters, but those are 3 examples of powerful filters that are simple to use, easy to use, very straightforward, that will save you a fortune. Let me tell you something. Depending on what state you live in, it is almost impossible for you to have a debt problem right now in this country. I'm not saying it's going to be like that next year or the year after, but I'm saying for the remainder of this year, it is almost impossible for you to have a debt problem. The only reason you have a debt problem is because the debt exists here. The debt does not exist in real time because you have debt cancellation offered by the government. Now, let's see. In the time that I've left, I want to talk about one more thing that I think will impact you guys a lot, and then I want to take some Q&A before we wrap up. So the last thing I want to talk about is how you are being exploited. Right now, the president has said that he is actively trying to shut down debt collectors. The FTC, if you go to their website, you see that every day the FTC is shutting down debt collectors. If you write down this website, BrentSettlement.com, go to BrentSettlement.com. This is a website set up by the federal courts where they overturned every collection judgment from Midland Funding. Midland Funding is the single largest debt collector on the planet. The courts overturned all of their litigation, which means billions, maybe close to $1 trillion in debt has been overturned by the courts. So that means that everybody sitting in this room knows somebody that should be getting some money back from Midland. I guarantee you, if you're sitting in this room, you know somebody that has been sued or come after for collections by Midland Funding. That's how big they are. So by simply talking to people about BrentSettlement.com, you can put some money back into their personal economies. So let's talk about why. In fact, let me give you a passage here that I want you to take a look at. Let me give you a passage from law. We're going to talk about the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act. Section 802, subsection 802 says, there is abundant evidence of the use of abusive, deceptive, and unfair debt collection practices by many debt collectors. Abusive debt collection practices contribute to the number of personal bankruptcies. So the government is saying, you guys are filing bankruptcy for debt that you don't even owe. You're filing bankruptcy for debt that you don't even owe. That's not me, that's Congress. Okay, number 2, marital instability. Currently, the single number 1 cause for divorce in this country is finances. We know that. But check this out. You guys are fighting over debt in financial situations that you really don't even have. You're in a marriage where you think you're broke and your back is against the wall, you're under a lot of stress and pressure, but that's not even the case. And number 3 is loss of jobs. So abusive debt collection practices contribute to the number of personal bankruptcies, marital instability, loss of jobs, invasion of privacy. Existing laws and procedures for redressing these injuries are inadequate to protect consumers. So the next question you should be asking is, what are these abusive, deceptive, and unfair debt collection practices? So I'd like to talk to you about that very quickly. Your creditors realize that you don't know the difference between legal debt and technical debt. A legal debt means that you have the legal standard for proof of indebtedness as dictated by state and federal law. All other debts are technical. Let me give you an example of a technical debt. Pastor, everybody that's attending this meeting now owes me $5,000. You guys can start passing out $5,000 for it. Everybody in this room owes me 5 G's. Go ahead, I'll wait. Is it illegal for me to say that you owe me $5,000? No. In fact, I can send you all a letter and demand payment, provided I tell you that this debt is not real. I have to legally tell you that. And so every technical debt in this country has to have this statement on it. And I want you guys to try this. Now, I know everybody in the room got perfect credit, so do me a favor, ask one of your friends or relatives to give you a copy of a debt collection letter. Or go online and pull a copy of a debt collection letter. I want you to see this for yourself. Every debt collection letter is required by law to carry this statement. Unless you notify this office within 30 days after receiving this notice that you dispute the validity of this debt or any portion thereof, this office will assume this debt to be valid. That single statement converts this document into a contract. This contract is giving you 2 choices. First, you can dispute the validity of this debt, or you can pay it. You have 2 choices. Now, this is what they know about you, because they've studied you in focus groups and spent millions of dollars developing this document. They know you don't like to write. So they know that you don't like to write, so they can stress you out and force you to pay a debt that you don't even owe. This is a technical debt. You know that because that statement is on there. What I want you to think about, all the bills you've gotten from Sears or JCPenney or your Visa or MasterCard, have you ever seen that statement? Did Visa send you a statement that says, unless you notify this office within 30 days after receiving this notice, you dispute the validity of this debt or any portion thereof, this office will assume the debt's valid? Of course they never said that, because they know the debt is valid. They know you owe them money. There's no confusion. The debt collector is trying to collect on a technical debt. In fact, when you got this letter, you didn't owe anybody any money. But after 30 days of not responding, you created a debt where none exists. Let me prove it to you. I want you, when you get your copy of your debt collection letter, pull the first 2 statements. And Pastor, if you would, one, you have a meeting or something, have people bring these forward and read these. I want you to see this. The first statement on every debt collection letter says, the named creditor has placed this account with our office for collection. What does that mean? Most people think that that means they either sold the account to somebody or they were hired to collect the debt. Well, tell me this, if that is true, why didn't they just say that? We were hired by JCPenney to collect this debt. When we bought the debt from JCPenney, you now owe us. Why didn't they say that? Because those statements would be untrue. That would be a lie. They told you the truth. They told you that somebody placed, you see that? Somebody placed this account in their office. They're not sure how the account got there. All they know is it got there. So they're not lying to you, they're allowing you to lie to yourself. The account was placed in their office. The second statement, I want you to read it. It says, if you choose not to respond to this notification, we will assign your account to a collector with instructions to collect the balance. That's a scary and crazy line. Because if you thought about it, you would laugh at this. You wouldn't be scared and intimidated and stressing yourself out. You would start bawling. Because take a look again. It says, if you choose not to respond to this notification, we will then assign the account to a collector with instructions to collect the balance. So let's think about this for a minute. If this account was sold to NCO Financial Systems, why wouldn't they simply assign it to a collector and say, go get my money? Right? What are they waiting for? Why would they have to wait for you not to respond 30 days? If they legitimately bought, if it's a legitimate debt and I bought it, I'm going to collect on it the next day because I need my money. Okay, or even worse, if you're thinking they were hired to collect the debt, okay, if I hired you to collect it, what are you waiting 30 days for? You would assign it to somebody and say, go collect their money, right? So it shoots down those types of logic. And it shows you exactly what the document is. That is why in the industry, this document is called a throwaway. The reason it's called a throwaway is because it was designed so that you will throw it away. They're afraid that if you read it, you'll know what it is. So that's why it's set up the way it is. They know you're going to throw it away. In fact, some of you guys are even psychic. As soon as the letter comes in the mail, you just kind of, yeah, that's a bill, and you just throw it away. It's designed to do that. It is designed to do that. Okay? So, what is the point of today's class? Today's class is designed to encourage you, number one, but to show you that this is much deeper than you probably thought. And let me explain something to you that a lot of people miss. You know, I teach debt forgiveness, I teach debt cancellation, debt filtration, and a lot of Christians get very concerned, and they're like, debt cancellation, but I bought them tools from Sears, I should pay Sears back. You can't pay Sears back. Try it. After 120 days of non-payment, Sears won't take your money because they've already been paid by the government. Try it. Call Sears up and say, hey, I'm standing right outside. I know I've been ducking and dodging you for a couple of years now. You know I got caller ID. But I'm here and I want to pay you right now. I'm going to pay you. Simply give me my account number and the balance I owe you, and I'll walk indoors and pay you right now in cash. They will never accept your money. What they might try to do is tell you, oh, the debt's been transferred to some collection agency. Say, no problem. I understand that. But I was listening to the president the other day. He said debt collection was a fraud. So I can't pay them. I'm a good steward. What I can do, since I borrowed the money from you, is pay you. So do me a favor, transfer the debt back. That's how transfer works, right? You transfer to them, have them transfer back. I'll wait. So you will paint them in a corner, and they will have to tell you that that debt no longer exists. So this is how I'd like to sum this up for you who are good Christians. This is what I want you to understand. You know that there is power in prayer. There's power in prayer. I know that there's power in prayer because God, you can't imagine the stuff He has done for me. If I told you, you probably wouldn't believe it. That's how powerful He's worked in my life. You know there's power when two people join in agreement to a single prayer. You know that there's power in that. So imagine, if you would please, if 80% of all Christendom prays for the same thing on a daily basis. Again, imagine if you could get 80% of all of Christendom to pray for the same thing every day for years. Would that be powerful? Okay. So let's think about this. Forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. You heard that before? Forgive us our debts. Forgive us our debts. So why should you be surprised that God has intervened to help you eliminate your debt? Why would you be surprised? You should be surprised if debt filtration didn't exist. All right, I am done. Are we taking questions, Corleen?
Yeah.
That's
Gotta turn the mic on. First of all, let's give Dr. Grayson for that. All right.
hold on.
All right.
Hello. I thank God for you because I've been pretty and my question is, I'm running to do with judgment and eviction. That's the hardest for me. So how do I help them with the judgment and eviction?
Okay. Are you talking about a mortgage eviction or a rental eviction?
Rental.
Okay. For a rental eviction, it's very tricky. The only way we have been able to successfully shut down a rental eviction is that we have challenged the landlord's right to evict. And the only way to successfully do that is if you put the landlord in breach of contract. And the only way to put him in breach is to cite deficiencies in the rental space itself. Any type of eviction is a breach of contract lawsuit. Whoever has the breach loses. So if he's saying that you didn't pay, but you can conversely say the reason I didn't pay was these are the substandard living conditions which you subjected me to. This is what prompted me or put me in that position. That now puts him in breach of contract, and that's how you would reverse it.
Okay.
What about the judgment?
The judgment for the landlord got a judgment against you?
No, sir. I'm saying points about credit. What about like judgments? Sometimes I have judgment.
A judgment for a typical debt you're talking about?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. Judgments for debts are easily filtered. Easily. In fact, let me give you something to take a look at. If you go online and take a look at, it's a free publication. It's called Debt Deception. The other publication is called Debt Weight. This is a study done by the Legal Aid Society. In this study, they found that 99%, now listen to what I'm saying, 99% of all judgments are based on fraud. 99% are based on fraud. So in the publication, they talk about how to reverse those cases. Now that is what we do as a company on a routine basis. We overturn every judgment and garnishment. Every judgment and garnishment anybody has ever had, we can reverse those. It should be dismissed, vacated, or discontinued. Never settle on a judgment. You want it dismissed, discontinued, or vacated. But starting with that publication shows you why it's fraud. A lot of you are thinking, well, I owe this money, therefore I should pay. Incorrect. Most of this debt has already been canceled, and therefore it can't be prosecuted in federal courts. The only reason it is because, again, they know that you have not been taught this system. Oh, let me give you one more publication. It's called Repairing a Broken System. This was written by the federal government. Repairing a broken system. It's how to protect consumers in debt litigation. It can't be no simpler than that. That's an excellent, excellent question that impacts a lot of folks. Again, because we're not challenging these fraudulent judgment claims, they're getting out of control. That's why if you go to BrentSettlement.com, you see that the federal trial courts overturned every single judgment they got for 10 years. They overturned them all with one case. Do you understand how powerful that is? That signals that there is something wrong in the legal system. When the judge goes in and overturns every case that you have ever won, I'm talking about hundreds of thousands of cases he overturned because they were all due to fraud. So that's what you should be doing on a regular basis. And once you do it a couple times, help your friends, your family, community. You know, at some point, I would like your church to even announce to the community that bring us your judgments. We're going to start overturning judgment. It will impact the community in a major way. In a major way. We're going to overturn every judgment and collection everybody has. It will fill the church to capacity and give you a tremendous opportunity to witness and grow. Excellent question.
Yeah, Dr. Grayson, let me follow up on that question. Now, most of the time when you get a judgment, it goes into credit. So, how easy to get that off your credit? Like the judgment going to go on your credit and you get something, and you look at that,
once the judgment is vacated, all you do is send a copy of the vacation to the consumer credit bureaus, and they will take it off automatically. If you get a vacation, a dismissal, or a discontinuance, it will automatically be taken off your credit, and that's the only thing you should be settling for. Most of your judgments are default judgments. That means you just didn't show up to court. So by simply saying, I was never notified, which is usually the case, it's automatically vacated. You file what's called a motion to set aside. And again, you know, we would have to talk more in detail because I don't want you doing this the wrong way. So either we can talk more or you talk with an attorney, but you file a motion to set aside. If you were never served, it's automatically vacated. It's gone. So you send a copy of that vacate notice to the credit bureaus, and they'll take it right off your credit. Very simple, very straightforward. That is a very powerful debt filter.
Thank you. You have another question?
I'm asking if hello, there's a good filtration on student loans.
Beautiful. There's a perfect filter for student loans. If your student loan is in default, it's a state-level filter. It's either called a GSL or DSL, Guaranteed Student Loan or Direct Student Loan. You call any state agency and tell them it will reinstate your loan, which is what you want. It's automatic. There's no credit check. Even if you're in garnishment, if it's in default collections, it'll automatically reinstate it. You make a couple of trial payments, and then they will automatically clean all the late payments and derogatory off of your credit. You don't even have to go to the credit bureaus. It's an automatic process. It is a true debt filter. It's designed just for student loans. Now, one of the things we're going to talk about in our advanced class is how to keep your student loans in what we call perpetual deferment. You shouldn't be paying a student loan. You should be deferring it until you're maybe 80 or 90. Once you're 80 or 90 years of age, then you should be worried about paying your student loan. Until that time, it should be in deferment. Unless you just become so rich that you just want to write a check for it, most of our clients pay their student loans off when they're 80 or 90.
All right, thank you. All right. Got to get around to you.
Good morning. I'm having this divorce organization that was asking leave mine because it was a project and it we still put it on the credit. And we refused to accept it because then they went back and asked for the money that they sent back to us and paid it. It's time to check back. So how do I handle that?
I'm sorry, you broke up a little bit. Can you restate that question for me?
Yeah, but she said that they had won the case in the defense, but they still put it on her record that when she applied for another part, they didn't put it on.
Not that they charged for the money they gave us back.
It's not for the money that they gave her back.
They said that I owe them.
Okay, so can be, yeah, that stuff can be easily disputed with the credit bureaus, but you want to make sure you filter all the debt first and then challenge it with the credit bureaus, and it'll fall off of your credit. It will definitely come off the credit. The debt's got to be filtered first, though.
Like the Congress that's expired. Filter is the time expired that they can claim.
Well, filtered means it really, I'm sorry, we didn't cover enough of this. There's 48 filters. So what we do is review the debt to find out which filter to use on it. So if it's an immediate problem, you can contact the associate that's here in the office, and she can help you with that. Or we are going to be talking about more and more filters over the course of successive months, and we'll deal with it. But you have to figure out which filter corresponds to that debt, then you filter it, and then you dispute it with the credit bureau. So if anybody out there has an immediate problem with foreclosures, you got judgments, garnishments, things of that nature, make sure you see the associate or the pastor, and we will help you deal with that immediately. Otherwise, we'll be doing more of this type of thing.
Hi, Grayson.
Hi.
And by GE Capital, and every time I paid like 2 days they charge me about the same amount in late fees that I would pay for the normal payment. I can't seem to get that on this credit card. I've asked for hardship and asked for any type of payment arrangements or whatever they want to, they just adding more and more late fees to this credit card. And I just want to know, so I walked away from it, I'm really in the program. So I don't know, I wouldn't want to ruin my credit now that my school's going to go up, so can you help me?
Okay, one of the things you can do with them, remember we talked about a phase 1 filter is called a hardship program. If you call them up, they can include you in the hardship program so that they can cut out all the fees, the interest rate can be greatly reduced, so you can recoup some of that money and reduce your principal faster. Then secondly, if you've had a couple late payments in the past with these accounts, part of their hardship programming, you can ask for what's called a courtesy late payment removal. So if you've had 1 or 2 lates in the past, you can do a courtesy removal. If you're paying too much in interest and fees, ask to be included in the hardship program. You have to ask for it by name. You have to say hardship program.
Okay, now I've done that, and they did tell me they don't offer that. So is that a such thing? Because I think
GE Capital said that. GE Capital told you they didn't have a hardship program.
they did.
Okay, let me take a quick look at something here. I know every lender, especially GE Capital, has a hardship program. Let me just look something up real quick. Yeah. Okay, do me a favor. Just go online first. I want you to call them again. Go online, and it comes right up. Put in GE Capital Hardship Program. It pulls the program right up. So go online, pull it first, and say, look, I was just online. Why you taking online? Just put it in. It's right there. Eat them up. Eat them up.
Dr. Grayson, we got a line here. Now, how much time you have?
I can take 2 more questions. Give me 2 more questions.
2 more questions.
Hello, Dr. Grayson. I have a question. How do you how do you eliminate old debt, old unpaid debt to be able to raise your credit score?
How do you eliminate old debt?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's the easiest. That's what we're talking about. That's what the debt filtration program does. If it's old debt outside of statute of limitations, there's a couple of forms you have to file, which we can help you with that. That's the easiest thing. Old debt. So really, after 120 days of non-payment, there are filters that start to kick in. But the statute of limitations filter is the easiest to use. So the first thing I would do is, you know, what state are you in?
California.
California. Okay, so California, you know, is only 4 years. The statute of limitations is only 4 years there. So if you have not made a payment in 4 years, that debt is very easy to filter out. So don't pay any of that debt, and it will be removed from your credit.
So anything that's older than 4 years,
Older than 4 years is a wrap.
Is it 4 years?
If all your debt's over 4 years old, you are debt free, ma'am. Congratulations.
Dr. Grayson, I'm Dr. Yu. Thank you for the phone conversation we had last Sunday evening.
Yes, sir. Yes,
My
sir.
question to you is, how do I know what is my accurate FICO score? Because I'm using Privacy Guard and I get one set of scores. And if I go to myfico.com, they don't give me a score. They turn it into 3 other credit bureau scores. I don't know how to know what's my accurate FICO score.
Well, you know, Congress just debated this issue a couple sessions ago. Ultimately, there is no correct answer because this is what's happening right now. The score that you see at any level, no matter who you get it from, is still different than the score used by creditors and employers because they use what's called a blended score anyway. So the simple answer is your FICO scores that you pull is just a reference point so that you to understand what you need to do to keep improving your score. Ultimately, you never know what your real score is because everybody uses different formulas to drive the real score. So it's always considered to be a reference point. Now, Congress is debating on whether to streamline this process, or what they wanted to do is make the formulas available to you. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think that's going to happen. And besides, it's too complicated because, you know, I've deciphered the major FICO algorithm and the BICS algorithm, and to try to have people understand it and interpret in usable data is going to be very difficult. So you just kind of have to use whatever score you have as a reference point. But generally, it's good for that purpose.
Oh,
That's an excellent question.
All right, you two come on with these, and then we're going to Estrada, interview the answers on this question, Estrada after.
Dr. Grayson,
Yes, sir.
I want to say thank you very much for your information thus far. I would like to ask you, I took a home study course years ago with CSI, and what it was for tractor trailer driver. But they told me I didn't have to pay back the student loans or nothing. I took the course at home. I went to Bridgeport, Connecticut, passed the test, and received my license, my for tractor trailer driving, and I went to work driving tractor trailer. Now, years later, I get this notice, which is calling me now, even now in California. This was back in Philadelphia, by the way. Even in California, they're calling me for the student loan, which is now $18. But I used to drive tractor trailer. At the time, I had the money. I could pay them if I knew it. But it was like they told me I didn't have no. And
That's
so
really good. That's what you call zombie debt. Remember, we talked about zombie debt. This is debt that's dead, but they resurrected it because people keep paying it. the first thing you should ask them to do is send you written proof of the debt. Have them send you written proof, and then if you have any problems with that, then you forward it to my office. We'll show you how to deal with it. But typically, if you ask for written proof, they know where you're going, and they'll walk away. But they're taking a shot at you to see if you understand debt filtration and statute of limitation. So there's so many filters that will cover that, it's not even worth talking about. So just start by asking them to verify the debt. You don't have to answer none of their questions. Just say verify this debt, and that's it.
Thank you.
All right. I think Dr. Grayson is gone. Gone, Dr. No, he's here. All right. Now, Dr. Grayson, these two people on this is June Hills and Merge. All right.
I need to ask you a question about, long time ago, I filed, I went to get, try to apply for Medi-Cal, Medi-Cal, for me being in the hospital so many times for different high blood pressure, different things, that's conditions in my body. But they wouldn't approve for it. First they approved it, and the hospitals I was being seen, emergency care, it wound up where they said they didn't have it, they canceled the Medi-Cal. So due to emergency, like they paramedics to the hospital, they charged me a fee. So now I'm over like thousands of dollars for medical services. I want to ask you, what do I do about that? Because now there's like collections on a lot of them, and a lot of money, and I just want to know what to do.
Okay, who is billing you? Is it a debt collector or is it the hospital?
It's the hospital and the debt collector too.
Okay, normally the hospital only pursues you for 120 days, and then they will get paid from the government. So at that point, debt collectors come in with fake debt collection and try to get you. In fact, the government just did a study on this. They found that 50% of all collections were medical collections, and there should be technically no medical collections because the government pays all medical debt. That's why if you take a look on the internet right now, the Fair Isis company just changed their entire scoring model to not score medical collections.
Okay.
That's how crazy the scam is. Go online right now. They just did this within the last 30 days. Medical collections don't even score on your credit because they're fraud. So again, ask them for debt validation, and then see either the pastor or the associate that brought you there, and we'll show you how to filter that debt. Please don't pay any collection agency medical debt. Don't pay it. Give that to the pastor.
What is the website?
The website has the associate there will give you all of that information.
Okay.
The last question.
My question is, I'll put in for a normal application. I got denied, so they was going to foreclose on the property. So you had paid back, so I put in another. So I filed bankruptcy, and I was to keep the bankruptcy, the foreclosure coming in. So I finally got the modification, but I had put the second on the bankruptcy. Do I have to pay that second?
The second, okay, typically when they foreclose on the first, the second is you have to negotiate the second away. Usually they'll take 10 cents on the dollar or they'll charge it off. If they charged off the second, you can filter it and you don't have to pay. But if they didn't charge it off or you didn't negotiate it, then it's still in force and you have to go back. You should be settling on the second. You shouldn't be paying the second.
No, you misunderstood. They didn't foreclose me because I got the modification. And so when I got the modification, I had already put the second on the bankruptcy. And so that's how they sold it to somebody else if they want me to take a second.
Okay, you can apply for, since you got the mod on the first, you can do a modification on the second. typically they'll ask you to finish the mod on the first one first, and then they'll give you a modification on the second. You can modify that second, but unfortunately you're going to have to pay it unless they charge it off. So to help you, I would ask for a modification on the second, which is a phase 1 filter. Ask them to modify the second mortgage. Tell them you got a mod on the first, and to do a mod for you on the second. Sometimes it can take the form of a principal reduction.
When we got a recharge on the second.
You got a what?
I got a recharge on the second. Was bankrupt.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that. You got a what?
I had the second one was discharged on my bankrupt.
Oh, you discharged the second.
Yes.
Discharge the second. Okay, so you don't have to pay if you got a discharge through the bankruptcy. Okay.
Yeah, that's what I thought. But
if it's been discharged through the bankruptcy. Oh, that's completely different. That debt's gone. That debt's gone, sir. Yes, sir.
That's what I thought.
Oh, okay, there you go. That makes more sense. There you go. Yes, discharged through the bankruptcy. That debt is gone. Dead. Beautiful.
All right, let's thank Dr. Grayson and we have more questions. Thank you so much for taking this time. Yes, we really appreciate that. All right.
Okay, so thank you, Dr. Grayson.
Thank you. I'll see you guys next time.
All right.